Welcome to the show. This is The Business of Life, and I'm your host, Doug Johnson. As you can see, today we don't have a guest, so we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm thinking that today's world is in crisis. We all hear the negative stories, very few positive stories, but the world is in a world of hurt. I want to talk about that a little bit because I'm really bothered by it. And hopefully by the end of our show today, we'll be able to share some solutions to that. Before we do that though, I would just like to thank my community focus, communityfocus.org and .app, for the opportunity to have done these shows for the past 7 years. We have had wonderful guests, and we will continue to have the same great guests as we continue forward. The first thing I'd like to do today is to talk about some instances of things that really perturb me. We read the news and we see stories of this kind going on, and we don't all hear the same stories the same way. So I want to just mention a couple of things. Recently, I came across an article that talked about a school district in upstate New York that has banned the singing of jingle bells. We all have sung jingle bells as adults, as kids, and you might ask why the school district has said, okay, you can't sing jingle bells anymore. The first singing of jingle bells was done at a minstrel show back in the early 1900s. And this has become kind of a cause for this particular school board. It's politically incorrect. You can't do it. My response to that is, oh, please. You know, we've all sung it. Let's look at the context. If you're concerned about that, Jingle Bells is a great song. Another instance, our Browns quarterback recently has been receiving death threats because the Browns, lost against the Packers recently. Seriously, folks? Death threats? I mean, come on. Last spring, a veteran was speaking at a Memorial Day celebration in a neighboring community. And he started talking about the role that African Americans, black people, had in the establishment or the winning of the Civil War. At that point, some of the powers that be, quote unquote, turned off his microphone. Now, again, I say, really? I mean, come on, folks. This is reality. It's history. Let's not erase history, but let's give credit where credit is due. Come on, you turn off a microphone because you don't happen to agree. The people who were sponsoring this program, and the people who turned off the microphone were with the American Legion. Come on. No, really. My wife is a former teacher, and during the pandemic, as you know, there have been questions in school districts about masks versus no masks. And many school boards have been filled, or school board meetings have been filled with people hounding the school board members as to which side of the fence they're on as concerned with masks. My wife's question as a former teacher is, where were you when we were talking about curriculum for your child? Where were you when we were talking about bullying at school? Where were you? And her list of questions keeps growing. And you're here to talk about masks. Where were you when the education system was being questioned? Again, in a neighboring community, and continuing the school board theme, recently members of the school board of a neighboring community found that there were some books being used in a high school course that were borrowed from a neighboring college, and there were writing prompts that were deemed to be inappropriate. One of these was write about an experience, a sexual experience that you would not talk with your mom about. I can understand that could be a little dicey, but I asked a friend of mine who has a daughter who is a sophomore in high school about this, and I said, you know, what would you say to your doctor or your daughter if she came home and said, well, I have this really weird writing assignment? So she said, I asked my daughter about this, explained the situation to her, explained the prompt to her, and she said, you know what my daughter said? I would write on the page on the writing assignment, it's none of your business. And yet here we have a school board, the mayor of the community called for the resignation of each school board member and threatened legal action against them, took it to the county prosecutor's office, who decided that this was not a case of sexual harassment, and said basically, okay, let's put it to rest. This has caused a furor in our neighboring community. The Great Resignation. As the pandemic continues, we're finding that less and less people are looking for work in the general marketplace. The hospitality industry has been particularly hard hit. And some people are saying, you know what, they're not being paid enough. And upon looking at this, and as you may recall, my background is in human resources, and in talking about this with a number of people, we find that wages are only part of the equation. Many people today, and thankfully there are generations now coming into the workforce who will not put up with poor management, being mistreated, being overworked, having expectations that are so high they cannot be met. That's why we have a great resignation. Finally, people are standing up for what should be a common sense approach to the workplace. As an employer, treat your employees right. That way you have productivity, you have happy employees, and you will not have a great resignation at your company. We have seen in the past year or two the, shall we call it, demise of many statues of Southern leaders who have been pulled down off their statue bases. We have seen people criticize and want to rename schools and streets named for presidents that we have had, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, because they owned slaves. If we look at that, and I certainly do not believe in ownership of any other human being, but look at it in the context of the time, I think the real question here is, were the slaves treated properly? In the context of the times, it was okay at that time, in that period of time, to own slaves. As I mentioned, at least two of our presidents are very popular presidents, very knowledgeable presidents, presidents who helped found our country, owned slaves. Wrong? Yes, wrong. In the context of the times, and we need to bear in mind the context of the times, not wrong. Maybe if they treated their people properly, if they treated their people right. You know, we have so many major problems in the world right now. This particular issue that I'm going to mention begs the question, you know, people have too much time on their hands. Why are they doing this? Someone is suing the cereal company Kellogg's and claiming that there are not enough strawberries in their strawberry Pop-Tarts. Really, folks, let's focus on something important in life. People have too much time. They're spending a whole lot of time on social media, which is a whole other issue that we'll get into. Why is the world in crisis? There are several simple reasons. One is a sense of entitlement, and this is prevalent in the way that we've brought up our kids. Younger generations, I know it's a trite expression, but how many times have you heard, oh, my child showed up for a ball game and at the end of the season won a trophy for being there? Not for doing anything, but for being there, for showing up, a trophy for showing up. Things like this form a sense of entitlement. I know of parents who make the way for their children. Oftentimes they're called helicopter parents. And whatever the child is doing, the parent intervenes. And it's okay. I'll do that for you, the parent says, because you're my child. I owe it to you. Many advertisements that you see today say, you know, you might have this condition. It's not your fault. Again, sense of entitlement, taking away the desire to do anything fruitful. A lack of respect of people. Oh my gosh, we could go on and on about that today. We won't, don't worry. But the lack of respect, oh my gosh, if you look at the political scenario right now, and I'm hesitant to do that, but I will, members of Congress used to disagree about things, about bills, about the direction of the country. And they would disagree, and then they would go out to dinner or go out and have a drink. And they were friends. They respected each other's opinion and respected each other's right to have an opinion. I don't think that exists today. We have so much disinformation, and I think a lot of that is due to the prevalence of social media and what I call silos of information or disinformation, as the case might be. You know, when you are on your cell phone or your iPad or on your computer and you look up something, don't you find it odd that all of a sudden you start getting ads for that or articles about that? Pretty strange. Big Brother, 1984, is really watching us. So if you look at something that is not true, you start getting that same kind of information. Hence, you then have a silo of disinformation because, you know, there seems to be a lack of training how to think critically critical thinking is almost non-existent anymore. If we were all shown and taught how to think critically, then we could say, you know what? This doesn't really make sense. Or, does this make sense? Flipping it around. During the course of our shows, The Business of Life Strategies for Success, we have had over 40 guests, and we have asked each guest for at least 3 strategies for success. I went through the shows recently and my notes and pulled some of the strategies for success that I think would be relevant today for successful living and in turning around this crisis that we have in the world today. These are in no particular order, but appear several times through the shows that we have done. I would like to thank all of the guests that have given us strategies for success and remind you, the audience, that the shows are available. The previous 4 shows are available on the My Community Focus app or the website of Community Focus. I also have started a YouTube channel that is found on YouTube, obviously. Business of Life Strategies for Success has our logo of the dog peeking around a briefcase. And although some of these are business strategies, they apply to everyday life. And my suggestion, if you're willing, would be to go back and watch some or all of these shows. They're all very interesting people who have something important to share with us. And as we go forward, we will continue to post the shows. Anyway, some strategies for success. And I say these are strategies for successful living, but they're also some strategies that will help turn around this crisis that we're having today in the world. So, be authentic. Kind of it speaks for itself. Do not judge. You don't know where that other person has been. You don't know what the context of the situation has been. Tell the truth. Oh my gosh. In today's era of disinformation, how important is that? Tell the truth. 3 simple words. Be a good communicator. Think about what you're going to say. And when I talk about communication, think about the implications of what you're going to say, what you have said in the past, and how that has affected the person or persons you are speaking with. Be a good communicator. Engage your brain, as they say, before you engage your mouth. Learn something new every day. Don't go with your past thoughts. Consider those, but also try and learn something new. Respect yourself. So simple. But how important is that? Going back to listening and being a good communicator. When you're on the other side of the fence, listen to what you are not being told. We're being bombarded all day long with items of interest or disinterest. Listen to what you are not being told. What is out there in that void? Your attitude affects the outcome. Oh my gosh, think about that in our world situation today. If we're all like this, how is anything going to get done? If we have the attitude listen, we can be helpful here. We can be positive here. We can work together. Think about how much good can happen in our world. Obviously, we want to do everything to the best of our ability. That goes without saying. Don't do half a job when you can do the full job. Realize you don't know everything. Treat people like you want to be treated. The golden rule. And we seem to have forgotten that. How important is that? Everything in life is a collaboration. How many things do we try and do by ourselves and we find are so much easier to do when we have someone else's help? We're all in this world together. We need to do things together. Saying no does not make you a bad person. You have said no to a request, a favor, whatever. That doesn't make you a bad person if you say no. We tend to have the feeling today that if we say no to something, we're that bad person. No, we're not. We have just said no for whatever reason. Don't be afraid to change course. If you have held an opinion on something for a long time and you find some new information or you have rethought that opinion, it's okay to change your course. It's okay. There's nothing wrong in saying, you know what, I've rethought that. Maybe I was off base a little bit before, but after rethinking, here are my new thoughts. There is a quote from one of our guests that I absolutely love, and it might take a little bit of a thought. Dance in a way you don't know how to dance. What does that really mean? Good grief. Try something new. Even if you don't know how to do it, be open-minded. Be willing to change. It encompasses all of these. And to think that we have been able to contribute and offer some of these suggestions as a way to fix the crisis that the world is in. I have taken some of these quotes, some of these strategies for success. That's kind of hard to say, strategies for success. And kind of summarize them into some general items that I think are important and say a lot. And this is my take on how to save the world. The first thing is, in all capital letters, with an exclamation point, think. One word, think. Think about the implications. Think about why. Think about how you've made a decision to talk about whatever it is you're going to do. Use common sense. Oh my gosh, that was the name of my company, Common Sense University. We taught people how to stamp out stupid people syndrome. Yeah, I know, I'm way behind. But putting all of these things that we're talking about into action will help you use common sense. Agree to disagree. At the political level, again, during the last election, one of our neighbors on our street was diametrically opposed to the belief in the candidate that I supported. And he called me one day and he said, "Is it true that you're supporting so-and-so?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, that person is not a good person, and is going to screw up the country. And I said, okay, stop right there. You and I have been friends for a long time, and I know what your political views and values are, and you know what mine are. And before you go any further, I just want to say one thing to you. We are friends. And as friends, we need to respect one another and each other's opinions. And I respect the fact that you don't agree with me and I don't agree with you, but I respect the fact that you have an opinion and you're entitled to that opinion. And it's okay. And we can still be friends. Do you know what his response was? Wow, I never thought of that. Okay. We've talked lots since, obviously, and we are still very good friends. Think about what you say, how you say it, agree to disagree, know your sources, understand context, keep an open mind. And I'll close with just a couple of other thoughts. Do the right thing. We all know what the right thing is. We should know what the wrong thing is. Do the right thing. And moreover, one word, think. Thank you very much for listening to me kind of rant on today. But I thought it was important to take this opportunity at the beginning of a new year to talk about a concern of mine and how we can deal with that concern. Again, to our friends out there in the audience, thank you so much. Gratitude is a very important concept that we've not talked about here, but it's very important. And I feel much gratitude toward our audience, towards the people at Community Focus, and to my friends and acquaintances. So thank you again. Let's all make this a better place. And we will be seeing you soon. Thank you.